Oz Perkins is a name that at this point really needs no introduction, despite that really not being the case like 2 years ago. He's been making horror movies for quite a while, but once Longlegs came out and was a huge success, the dude decided that sleep is wildly overrated and became the most prolific director working in the genre right now. Keeper marks his third movie in 16 months, and since I'm currently working on 2 pretty substantial videos with Beau is Afraid and Weapons, I figured I should do something in the meantime instead of rushing those out. So we're gonna go through and take a look at every horror film Oz Perkins has made and rank them from my least favorite to my favorite. And by the time I'm done editing this video, I'm sure he'll probably have like 2 more movies out in theaters. He's already in production on the next one. Before we get into it though, a quick word from the sponsor of today's video, Uncommon Goods. The holiday season is fast approaching, and every year I wind up panicking at the last second, realizing I haven't done any shopping for my friends or family, and my brother and I, who also has this problem, will go out together on like the 22nd of December to go find everything in one day. It's kind of fun, there's a little charm to it, but I want to get ahead of things this year, so that's why something like this is perfect. Uncommon Goods is a curated online marketplace that partners with independent artists and small businesses, and despite only finding them recently, I have found so many things that would be a perfect fit for the people in my life. For example, my mom loves farmers markets, and I happened to find a perfect gift for her, which is like a kind of tote bag designed with farmers markets in mind. It's really high quality, it folds up well, it's got a strap on the outside, which is specifically designed to hold flower bouquets, which is perfect. Aside from being a great spot to find gifts, there are also a number of things on there that I just want to buy for myself. I mean, look at this celestial tide dial, for example. If I had that on my desk, I'd be writing dreamy nautical ghost stories every day. Just kind of what I'm striving for. I love this kind of marketplace because it gives small businesses the opportunity to get their work out there, and Uncommon Goods will also donate $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice for every purchase that you make, so that's something I'm happy to support. If you're also looking to get some nice stuff for your friends and or family for this upcoming holiday season, check out Uncommon Goods and get 15% off your next gift by using the link in the description. Thanks to Uncommon Goods for sponsoring this video. Let's talk some Oz Perkins. Alright, so coming in last place, and this one really hurts me because stylistically, it's something that could easily be my favorite. I mean, this movie looks so good, but I gotta say, Gretel and Hansel, it's just, this one didn't land for me as well as I'd hoped it would. I really do mean what I said about the style because, man, especially through the first 2 acts of this movie, the look and feel of everything is so up my alley. It's this very classic fairy tale imagery that still has a unique look to it, but it's the direction that Perkins decided to take this one in that wound up giving it this spot on my list. To be clear, I don't hate this movie, it's just my least favorite in his body of work. There were things that I certainly really enjoyed about it, like the way that they set up the culture in the film's world as a very oppressive and bleak one, which makes the contrast of the lifestyle that the witch in the woods offers seem initially so appealing to our young characters. But I just didn't find where things went to be a particularly interesting spin on the story, and the third act really robbed the movie of its very well realized style and tone for me. Performances are solid, the cinematography and production design is fantastic, but the whole thing wound up feeling kind of anemic to me. At number 5, we have Perkins' latest film as of the making of this video, that being Keeper. This movie does suffer from some of the issues that have become more prevalent as Perkins' career has gone on, largely in relation to the way that he handles the exposition in his stories, which, I mean, I was really hoping to see dealt with a little more tactfully here, and while I do think it's not quite as egregious as it was in Longlegs, the movie playing with a mystery and then just info dumping all of the answers before going into the climax is just not a satisfying way to experience a narrative in my opinion. That being said, Tatiana Maslany is absolutely fantastic as always, and it was largely her performance that kept me hooked into this one. I found most of what the storyline was doing pretty predictable, albeit with a few things that I definitely wasn't expecting, but watching her navigate through this increasingly trippy scenario made up for it because she's so good. This is a movie that is more enjoyed from a tonal perspective than I think it will be from a narrative one. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, as I will reiterate later on in this list. Now, the one thing I will say is that this movie is lower down because most of it I didn't find as interesting as some of Perkins' other work. But the climax was so much fun and featured some of the coolest stuff that Perkins has done in his career, but I won't go too much into it since the movie just came out and I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but Holy hell. This script has some problems, but the imagery, particularly towards the end of the movie, was so good that I can look past a lot of it. And if you're into that like dark, naturalistic, but dreamy look of Perkins films, then there's gonna be a lot for you to enjoy with this one. I love to see that Perkins is just ripping movies right now because we're getting a lot of cool shit, but if him taking a while longer between releases could maybe mean that we get something with a smoother delivery mechanism for backstory instead of huge exposition dumps towards the end, I'd also be okay with that. I enjoyed Keeper well enough, and it could definitely move up on the list as I rewatch it, because all the other ones I've seen multiple times, and if I was just basing this ranking off the final 15 minutes of each of these, then this one would be way higher up on the list, but the script throughout most of the movie just didn't really click for me, and it felt like a lot of wheel spinning was going on, and in a less effective way than some of Perkins' other movies that you could certainly describe that way. Still had a good time with it though. One other thing that I will mention is that the music here wasn't composed by Elvis Perkins, which is new. This was done by Ido von Bremen, who did some really great work. Awesome soundtrack to a pretty solid movie. Coming in at number 4, we have The Monkey. I had an absolute blast with this one. The reason it's lower down is because I didn't find myself having as much fun with it on subsequent viewings, but after Longlegs and The Blackcoat's Daughter and things like that, seeing Perkins just go buck wild with something like this was such a good time. It does, like all of his more recent movies do, have a massive info dump towards the end to fill in all the blanks, but it doesn't bother me as much here as it does in Longlegs or Keeper, because those movies were much more focused on being these sorts of like slow burn mystery films, Longlegs particularly. So having that sort of info dump feels like we're being robbed of something that makes that kind of movie special, whereas this one is not going for the same thing, and I don't think is as hurt by that sort of storytelling. It's super over the top and gory with some very creative and entertaining death scenes. I thought the sardonic humor of the movie was handled really well, but I think the thing that really made me appreciate The Monkey was how it was tied into Oz Perkins and his life experiences with many deaths of people very close to him, which is something that, although not as dramatic as some of what he experienced, I can relate with. The tagline of the movie, "Everyone dies and that's fucked up," pretty much perfectly sums up the perspective that I got a lot of relief from, because as someone who went through a period where it kind of felt like my entire family was being culled by some curse, it's nice to see a movie take that feeling of impending, ever-present death and just play it out in a really silly way. It's something that feels like it's sort of meeting death in the middle, and the little nod of the head to death itself to close the movie felt like such a perfect bow to tie the whole thing up in. It is insane that we all walk around knowing that we're just gonna fucking die, and I really enjoyed this movie basking in the absurdity of that. We can't fight it, so just nod your head as it passes you by until you meet it again. Very good movie, and I can't wait to make a dedicated video on it. Coming in at number 3, we have Longlegs. Well. This is a movie that I think was horribly mismarketed in some ways. The trailers themselves, in isolation, were very good, but it led a lot of people going into the movie with the wrong expectations, myself included. But thankfully the movie is rather honest about the sort of experience you're in for right from the opening scene, so it gives you a chance to shed any sort of expectation that you may have had and experience it as it was intended. Longlegs is probably the one that I have the most complicated feelings about, because man, right from that opening scene, the style of this film is right up my alley. It's got this really great Southern Gothic feel to it, which I think is super underutilized in horror right now. It's really dark and creepy and off-putting, but the reason I have such complicated feelings about Longlegs is because it's a mystery movie that relies way too heavily on exposition, especially since it's sort of a spiritual prequel to The Blackcoat's Daughter. We can look at that film and see how it handled its delivery of the story, and Longlegs would be like if we took those quiet and eerie scenes in The Blackcoat's Daughter and then laid some narration on top of them to spell it all out. The movie has a great style, a fantastic soundtrack, an awesome cast, Nicolas fucking Cage, who I've never once not been entertained by, and a Southern Gothic atmosphere that is so creepy and compelling in that signature Perkins way. I just always get frustrated by the fact that the movie comes so close to being incredible, but the massive exposition dump with no nuance at the end and the final scene of the movie just kind of takes away from what's overall a really great horror film. I still love Longlegs, don't get me wrong, but I feel like Perkins has done similar things to this with more success. The reason it's still this high up on the list, though, is because while those lows that I'm talking about are very much there and do bother me, the highs are so high that I can't put it anywhere else. Dr. Wolfula kind of put it perfectly in my eyes. He described it as a weird sort of Twin Peaks spin-off type thing. Although, of course, not nearly as good as Twin Peaks, but it's got those vibes to it. It's weird, it's creepy, it's off-putting, people don't talk or act the way you expect them to, and some of the imagery is just fantastic. I haven't done a video on all of Perkins' films yet, but I did do a deep dive on this one, so if you want to know more about my thoughts on it, you can check that out. Coming in at number 2, we have I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. And honestly, if you ask me on any given day, it could be a toss-up between this and Longlegs, but as of the time I'm making this video, it's just more the vibe I'm in. Well, it's been rather complicated to talk about my thoughts on some of these. This one is quite simple. I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House is an old-school, slow-burn ghost story that in and of itself feels like it's a ghost. If the more ambiguous elements of Perkins' films bother you, then I can absolutely see this one being your least favorite, because holy hell, while this dude isn't always one to give complete answers, he gives almost none in this movie. It's very open to interpretation, but the thing is that the questions that you're left wondering about when it ends, while interesting to ponder, really aren't the point here at all. He didn't owe us any answers with this one. At its core, this is quite a simple movie about death, memory, and the haziness surrounding the unanswered questions that arise when people die and leave others behind, wondering about them in their totality. The opening of this is honestly one of my favorite monologues I've heard in a horror movie, largely in part to the really unsettling way they handled this sort of like broken up ghostly voice, and also thanks to the dreamy visuals that will occasionally pop up throughout the film, which contain a haunting depiction of a spirit that I just never grow tired of. I think this is probably the most love it or hate it film in Perkins' catalog. A lot of his movies are like that. Maybe The Monkey could be more so, but I don't know. This one is so light on actual plot. But for me, it's one of those things that I'll throw on a gray, rainy morning and just get sucked into the really drab and ghostly atmosphere. I love ghosts, and to have a movie that, again, feels like it itself is a ghost is something that I just can't turn down. It's largely a very, very quiet film, so when it gets a bit more amped up, it really hits and feels like it's been earned since the film has been building up to it for the whole time, and the ending itself always leaves me wanting to go and write a ghost story of my own. Which I did, by the way. I wrote a movie. It's simple, but so atmospheric in a way that really resonates with me, so it's sitting comfortably at number 2 today. That brings us to my favorite film from Oz Perkins, which is none other than The Blackcoat's Daughter, which also happens to have been his directorial debut. What I love so much about this movie is that it manages to do something that I love to see, and that's that it's a possession film that doesn't feel like it's struggling to grab some light from under the huge shadow of The Exorcist. It's a very unique entry into the possession subgenre and delivers a dark, bleak, and upsetting depiction of what a possession would look like. The narrative structure being split up into different character perspectives is cool, and the twist was something that I actually didn't see coming, but it's that focused depiction on the possession that I found to be the most compelling aspect of the film, since it's done in a way that I don't think I've really seen anywhere else. Instead of having someone who's afraid of what's happening to them, we have a woman who feels very alone and has been through a lot of loss and winds up depending on the demon targeting her and using her for horrible acts as a means to fill the void when nothing else can. All of those little details, like it correcting the way she's arranging the cutlery like a parent trying to teach proper etiquette, is so cool to pick up on when you go and rewatch the movie, and it's also just a deeply sad portrayal of this sort of thing. The movie is absolutely chilling, with a huge focus on a slow burn atmosphere, which shouldn't be a surprise at this point, and Kiernan Shipka delivers a performance that manages to make the hairs on the back of my neck try to run away by doing nothing more than making a simple but deeply unsettling expression. I love how this movie plays out, and ultimately it's the conclusion of the story with that final scene that solidifies this one as my favorite film in Perkins' body of work thus far. It leaves such a potent impression and is a uniquely chilling conclusion to a possession story. Honestly, if it weren't for that closing scene, it would definitely be more of a toss-up here, but that final stretch is just so creepy that the Blackcoat's daughter has to sit in this spot. None of that is to mention the soundtrack, which, oh my god, if you want to sit down on a bleak winter day and try to do some horror writing, chuck this on and you'll be set. I love The Blackcoat's Daughter, it's fantastic. I think it's both the scariest and the most well-made film in Perkins' catalog, and it's honestly a mainstay for me at this point during the winter season. Dark, creepy, messed up, and really, really sad. This is the other Perkins movie that I do have a video on, so again, if you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on it, you can check that out. And so there we have it. That is where all 6 of Oz Perkins' films currently stand for me, and with him already being in production on The Young People, I'm sure we'll be back with something like this soon enough. I'm also hoping to cover the rest of his movies in more detail before that one is out, so make sure to keep an eye out for that, but also be sure to share your ranking for Oz Perkins films in the comments. Whether you agree or disagree with my list, I appreciate you watching the video, and make sure to keep an eye out over the next little while because I've got some very highly requested stuff that I'm dropping that I'm really excited about. Thanks for watching through to the end. I hope you enjoyed the video enough that you want to see more, and if that's the case, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell because YouTube can sometimes suck at recommending channels. A huge thank you to my wonderful Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members who are a massive help in allowing me to continue committing as much time as I can to making these videos. If you want to gain access to things like behind the scenes material or gain early access to my videos, consider supporting me on either platform. As always, thank you for stopping by Rocklin Graves. I hope you've enjoyed your stay.